立法會主席。
The President. Members' motion with no legislative effect. Mr. Gary ZHANG's motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. 5 members will move amendments to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I will first call upon Mr. Gary ZHANG to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, Mr. Gary ZHANG, Mr. Adrian HO, Mr. Tony Che, and Mr. Dennis LEUNG to speak in sequence, but they may not move the amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. I now call upon Mr. Gary ZHANG to speak and move the motion. Mr. Gary ZHANG. Thank you, President. I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. Since 2019, we have seen a fiscal deficit over the past 6 years. In 5 years, we have seen an imbalance of our public coffers, and we've seen demographic changes. So in terms of education, healthcare, the government has been increasing its expenditure on these areas to cope with the aging population problem. I think we are in a serious fiscal position. Therefore, the government has been freezing civil service pay as well as freezing the establishment. There have also been adjustments to different policies. For example, the government cancelled the $2 public transport fare scheme. It removed the student subsidy as well as increased the A&E award fees. The government was unwilling to do so, but it is riding out the tough times with the public. We are trying to save up money as much as possible. However, the construction costs have been on the rise in Hong Kong, and even with this fiscal deficit, we are seeing a substantial increase of construction costs, much higher than the costs for other areas. I have the reply from Secretary for Development to Mr. Tony Che's oral question here in relation to the total cost of public works over the past few years. Since 2021, the cost was $70 billion, all the way up to $105.3 billion in 2024-25. And the cost will reach $120 billion. I understand that public works can bring about economic benefits as well as job opportunities, and it will benefit professional services as well. And public works can help us reinforce our status in the 3 centers. It will also drive I&T development. That's why we need public works. However, we have to understand that public resources are the asset of the public, so we have to make rational use of public resources. With the economic challenges, I think the government needs to review the priorities for public works to ensure that each penny is well spent. We can defer non-urgent projects and optimize the allocation of public resources. This will help alleviate the financial pressure on the government. The government then can focus on improving people's livelihood and devote its resources on projects that will bring about economic benefits. This will help reinforce our status and foundation. This is why I move this motion. I think we need to review the priorities for public works. We should defer non-urgent projects, optimize the allocation of public resources, ease the financial pressure on the government, avoid cutting expenditure related to people's livelihood, to ensure more effective use of public resources. This is to enhance the speed and efficiency of key projects relating to the economy and people's well-being. Our party, the DAB, has been carefully scrutinizing the funding proposal submitted by the government to see if we have to allocate resources to these projects. We want to show the public that public works can bring about positive benefits to our economy and people's livelihood. In March this year, I proposed deferring the district cooling system project. This is because with rapid development of technology, we've seen changes in our district cooling systems. There are more efficient ways and cheaper ways to build our district cooling systems compared to 10 years ago. With a new system, we can reduce cost and achieve greater energy efficiency. And this suggestion got positive feedback from the Financial Secretary as well as the Secretary for Environment and Ecology, and this helped save $40 billion of expenses for our public coffers. This shows that by reviewing the effectiveness of public works, we can help the government save up money. This is also a way for the SAR government to listen to this council's views and respect people's comments. This also shows that we can increase revenue and cut back on cost. For projects concerning people's livelihood, we should prioritize them first. For example, we have allocated money to the Northern Metropolis project. Also, we want to speed up the building of public housing to reduce people's waiting time for PRH units. We have put in a lot of resources to these projects, so we should prioritize them. More importantly, we think that public funds should be focused on forward-looking projects. So for the infrastructure projects in the Northern Metropolis, we have to not just review the cost effectiveness of the projects, but see whether they can benefit the long-term development of Hong Kong. These projects deserve our support. So on this motion, I've put forward a number of suggestions for the government. First, I think we should have a clearer framework to review public works. The government should ensure diversified economy development and prioritize people's livelihood. The government should come up with a clearer framework to assess public works for non-urgent projects or projects that are not cost-effective. We should defer them and wait until our financial position becomes sound to take forward these projects. We should adopt an incremental approach. Second, we should have a revolutionary mindset. The government should be more stringent in containing expenditure. There should be a single department responsible for procurement. Transparency should be enhanced. There should be monitoring of the cost of these projects to make sure that they won't aggravate the burden of the government. For example, the government said that for the Northern Main Line as well as its spur line, they could be constructed in parallel. I hope that the government can adopt the same mindset. Under the premise of ensuring construction quality, the government should strive to minimize the construction period and reduce cost. Thirdly, the government should focus on building an industrial chain for infrastructure projects that would help us enhance our status in the three major centers. The SAR government should speed them up. For example, we've been talking about cementing our status as a maritime center, so the government can devote resources into greenfield bunkering. I think it is crucial for the government to seize the opportunity for transformation in this regard. Also, we've been talking about low-altitude economy, new energy economy, as well as AI. For infrastructures relating to these areas, the government should make advanced preparation. Apart from INT projects that require funding, well, I think the government should liaise closely with the relevant sectors to ensure that there is a favorable condition to build infrastructure for INT. I'd like the SAR government to take this matter seriously and take on board my suggestions. I look forward to hearing the views from other members so that we can bring our heads together and contribute to the SAR government to make sure the resources are well spent on people's livelihood and for economic recovery.
And I propose a question to you that Mr. Chan Hak-kan's motion be passed. Dr. Lo Wai-kwok. President, I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving the motion. That is to review the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. Now, I see consensus among members from their amendments. For example, the government should make sure that there will be sustained efforts in promoting public works. There should also be a comprehensive review on the relevant costs, and that priority should be given to livelihood-related projects to make sure that resources are allocated to support people's livelihood. And there should also be enhanced efficiency to protect construction practitioners' livelihood. Now we are in the era of economic transformation. The trade tariff war initiated by the U.S. has brought uncertainty to the global economy. Many industries and sectors bear the brunt, including construction industry. The government advocates infrastructure-led and capacity building planning principle to promote economic development and improve people's livelihood. In the 2025-26 budget, the Financial Secretary has proposed that in light of the Northern Metropolis development together with other public works projects, the annual capital works expenditure is expected to go up to $120 billion from $90 billion in the coming 5 years. Allocations will be provided for the construction sector to provide on-the-job training so as to groom talents for the future. Now, we welcome these initiatives. Public works projects involves land development, transport infrastructure, border construction, sewage, water supply, schools, hospitals, etc. Over 400,000 jobs are provided to the construction industry. These workers raise families. Now, we need to bring or inject impetus in the economy, and we also need to make sure that the construction industry is resilient against headwinds. Now, in terms of construction costs, members are very concerned. At the Public Works Subcommittee meeting held on the 10th of June about reprovisioning the Sha Tin sewage treatment plant to Kevin, the last phase would entail an allocation of $12.9 billion. Now that's so that the total cost would now be lowered to $32.8 billion, down from $50 billion through the hard work of the industry and government departments. Central procurement has been adopted by the DSD, and I appreciate that. We need to allocate public resources to more urgent livelihood-related projects, such as the Northern Metropolis, which is the driver for the future economic development of Hong Kong. The BPA made a proposal to the Chief Executive recently about the PA 2025, and that is to further streamline the process for land applications. And recently, the government and the MTRCL announced introducing mainland standards for the construction of the Northern Link. I believe that the mainland railway system enjoys high reputation. It follows a very high standard. Of course, we need to work on procurement of materials and planning, etc., to further lower cost and shorten construction time. My suggestion is that the SL government should make good use of new technology and prefabricated materials so as to cut cost and enhance works efficiency. The government should also review the investments in public works projects. There should be a consolidation of the list of large, medium, and small-scale public works projects. The government should assess the situation and accord the priorities in light of the actual circumstances. There should also be planning for manpower in the construction industry to prevent drastic fluctuations in the construction volume, so as to prevent a recurrence of what happened in the past. I so submit. I urge members to support my amendment. Mr. Gary ZHANG. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving the motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. Now, Hong Kong, as well as our country, has migrated to a different phase from high-speed growth to high-quality development. With limited resources, we need to make sure the resources are optimally used. For example, as mentioned by other members, for the Northern Link Spur Line, it will be kickstarted 2 years earlier than planned, and we also have other railway projects. Recently, we've also considered ways to lower costs and enhance efficiency. It shows the government's commitment in promoting the development of Hong Kong, as well as enhancing efficiency in public works projects. My amendment involves maintaining the overall scale of the government's annual expenditure in public works. Now, this actually echoes the amendment moved by Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, and that is on the basis of according priority to public works projects. We should make sure that the overall scale of investment can be maintained. Now, I'd like to give my 2 observations. The first is that we do have a shortcoming when it comes to infrastructure investment. Recent years, we've been striving to develop new and emerging industries, including the Northern Metropolis development, which provides pivotal support in terms of land for the economic transformation in Hong Kong. The Northern Metropolis is part of our country's strategy under the infrastructure-led and capacity-building approach. We need to provide the infrastructure to attract investment and enterprises to set up presence in Hong Kong. We need these prerequisites so as to bring development opportunities. Now, in NDAs, residents benefit from the infrastructure as well. In NT North, especially in rural areas, there are at the moment inadequacies. We need to provide livelihood-related projects. We also need to maintain the overall scale of investment in infrastructure so as to address the shortcoming of infrastructure in the new territories to meet the needs of industries as well as people's aspiration for a better life. The second observation is this: we need to be more proactive in drawing up fiscal policies to boost confidence and continue with infrastructure investment. As I mentioned, a person so malnourished should not be on a diet. Rather, this person needs supplement. This is akin to the fiscal deficit that we have at the moment. We need more investment coming from the private sector. Now, if the government scales back on investment in infrastructure, this is akin to putting a malnourished child on a diet. This will bring about very dangerous vicious circle. We could face economic risks as a result. Now, the restoring fiscal balance depends on the stamp duty revenue as well as Northern Metropolis. So the government should continue to invest in infrastructure to make sure that we have a stable stream of revenue for the public coffers. And like Mr. Gary ZHANG said, we need to prioritize public works, but we need to continue to invest in them. I think this is the crux of ensuring enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. Now, coming back to my amendment, the construction workers are the breadwinners of their families. the government should maintain the overall scale of investment in public works so as to keep jobs for the construction practitioners. As mentioned in this year's budget, the Financial Secretary agreed that for strategic infrastructure projects, they should be rolled out according to their plan. Otherwise, if there is any delay, we won't be able to improve the livelihood of our people. And that is why I urge members to support my amendment. Mr. Adrian HO. Thank you, President. I support the original motion. According to the government's estimates, the annual capital works expenditure in the next 5 years will rise to $120 billion from the $90 billion previously projected. We are concerned about proper use of resources. The government should have regard to the quality and cost effectiveness of public works to make sure that the money is well spent. Now, for some public works projects, consultants will be engaged in the design and planning and consultation process. These consultants play a crucial role to ensuring cost effectiveness. However, these consultants also charge quite heavy fees, and this may impact on capital works expenditure. That is why we also need to review the arrangement so as to conduct technical assessment and streamline workflow, as well as reviewing the urgency of public works projects. Also, from the experience in recent years, it's not difficult to identify the same companies and consultants taking up all the public works projects. There should be more competition. If there is over-concentration, I have a question as to whether this will promote healthy competition among the construction industry. As for project delays and planning problems, in recent years, I've yet to see major improvements. And these projects are more prone to cost overruns. Take the Tuen Mun Chek Lap Kok Link project with an allocation of $46.7 billion approved in 2023. Last year, audit report was published. Among over 100 contracts approved, over 60 of them had delays up to 3 to 17 months. As for cost overrun, because of the delays, an additional $1 billion had to be spent. Another project is the T4 project in Sha Tin. It was proposed in 2024 by the CEDD. The construction cost at that time was estimated to be $600 million. In 2006, the construction cost estimate rose to $1.1 billion. By 2024, this figure jumped to $7.1 billion. Now, even with efforts made to cut costs such as lowering the noise barriers and doing away with the lift, etc., the construction cost estimate was still $350 million. So there is a widespread concern about the monitoring of public works, whether enough has been done to make savings and control costs. In 2019, the government set up the Project Strategy and Governance Office, or PSGO, to tackle the problem of high construction costs and an aging workforce. Last month, a report was published. According to the subcommittee's report, the complex the procedure has yet to be streamlined. Because of the cumbersome vetting process, a lot of administrative work is involved. The government should review comprehensively the priority of public works projects to ensure quality. And on the premise of controlling expenditure, the government should maintain infrastructure investment to improve people's livelihood. I support the motion and I urge members to support the amendment.
Mr. Tony Che, President. Government's public works projects are not only costing taxpayers money, they're also important investment for our future development. They can create a lot of job opportunities. Just by construction industry alone, 300,000 construction practitioners help take care of 1 million people, including their family members. We need infrastructure for new development areas. We have been building housing, and all these help sustain our economic growth and people's livelihood, and they also stimulate the economic activities of other sectors. Therefore, our sector stresses that the government should not, because of its financial position, reduce its investment in infrastructure projects. In other countries and regions, when there is an economic downturn, the government put in more investments in major infrastructure projects. This is to avoid having the economy suffer more. In the past few years, take last year as an example. The construction cost went up from $90 billion to $120 billion. And one major reason behind the increase of construction costs is because we are entering an important phase for the Northern Metropolis development. We're no longer in the stage of strategic planning and development. For 2 weeks in a row in this council, we had a motion debate on Northern Metropolis development. Mr. Edward Lau from the DAB moved one motion, and for the other motion, he made amendments. And both motions are about the Northern Metropolis development, and the two motions got the majority of members' support. Today, this motion is moved by Mr. Gary ZHANG from the DAB. He suggests that we should ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects, and this is to bring about positive benefits to Hong Kong's economy and people's livelihood. I support this motion. In the original motion, it is suggested that we should defer non-urgent projects. Some may interpret it as reducing costs on public works, and this may hurt people's livelihood. That's why I moved the amendment, suggesting that we should maintain the average annual capital works expenditure at $120 billion. As for Dr. Lo Wai-kwok and Mr. Gary ZHANG's amendments, they echo with my amendments. Dr. Lo Wai-kwok's amendment stresses that we should ensure public works projects' contribution to people's livelihood. The government should avoid drastic fluctuations in construction volume to ensure employment opportunities of construction practitioners. Mr. Gary ZHANG suggests that we should maintain the overall scale of its annual expenditure in public works. I support both amendments. If these two amendments get member support, I will withdraw mine. Mr. Adrian HO mentioned that there is a rising cost in consultancy fees. The truth is that with the economic downturn as well as a sluggish property market, we see a drastic drop in terms of construction projects volume. We see a vicious cycle in terms of the competitions among consultancy firms. They have to make redundancies as well as face closures. So I will not support Mr. Adrian HO's amendment because it does not reflect the truth. Mr. Dennis Leung. I speak in support of Mr. Gary Zhang's motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects, as well as the amendments made by other members. My amendment is straightforward. I suggest that we first deal with urgent projects. I talked to Mr. Gary Zhang beforehand, and I raised the FTU's concerns on this issue. Our concern is that for non-urgent projects, well, they may be projects that are of some people's concern if they are related to their own districts. Some members of the public hope that public works can be taken forward in time, but for others that do not belong to the same district, they may see these projects as non-urgent ones. They hope that by deferring the urgent projects, non-urgent projects, we can save up money. So non-urgent projects really depend on our interpretation. We should look at these projects in a more positive manner. We should prevent disputes and avoid any arguments on whether projects are urgent or non-urgent. Well, Mr. Tony Che in his amendment also deleted the term non-urgent projects. The FTU is of the view that urgent projects include those concerning transport infrastructure, public leisure facilities, and tourism-related facilities. So we are suggesting a direction here. We understand the government's financial position and that we are facing a fiscal deficit. To pursue economic growth, we have to deal with the urgent projects that concern transport infrastructure. We have to avoid a drop in construction projects volumes so that construction practitioners will not see a drop in their pay. Sometimes we lack manpower in the construction industry and we have to import foreign labor. When there are not enough construction projects, construction practitioners face livelihood issues. They aren't able to make ends meet. So we have to protect construction practitioners and ensure healthy development of the industry. This is our major concern. I want to share an example. This past Monday, I went to Tai Wai Sha Tin to conduct a questionnaire survey to see whether the policy initiatives we called for are implemented effectively. We got one complaint. The resident told us that there was a project proposal to build an escalator in Sha Tin, and I told that resident that on the 2nd of June, the FTU would talk to the Highways Department, and we would do a site inspection. And it was only after my explanation that the resident realized the complexity of the project, and the resident showed his confidence to our party. Well, I want to say that we are seeing an economic downturn, but this is not unique to Hong Kong. The entire world is facing a sluggish economy. So we have to have the wisdom to cope with the current economic situation. We have to understand people's needs. This is our party's vision. Even for minor projects, for grassroots people, it is their major concern. For universal accessibility projects, they are of people's concern. Some people have to wait for 10 years for these projects to be taken forward, and we still see no progress. So we have to be people-oriented. I hope Mr. Gary Zhang and all other members will support my amendment. I so submit. Thank you.
Secretary for Development. President, I thank Mr. Gary Zhang for moving this motion. I also thank Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, Mr. Gary ZHANG, Mr. Adrian HO, Mr. Tony Che, and Mr. Dennis Leung for their amendments, so that we have an opportunity to tap members' views and suggestions on public infrastructure projects. As mentioned by Mr. Gary Zhang just now, sustained efforts have been made by the government to implement the infrastructure projects from $70 billion in 2021 to $105.3 billion last year recorded as actual expenditure. From the government's perspective, a rise in capital works investment is definitely good deed, because I fully agree with the points raised by other members just now, that public works or capital works expenditure is not any expenditure. It is important to maintaining long-term and sustainable development. It is a major investment that can improve the long-term competitiveness in Hong Kong and improve people's livelihood. It can also promote economic development. So maintaining a high level of input in public works will bring impetus to our economy. And that is why, in spite of the fiscal headwinds, we will not lessen our investment in capital works expenditure. As proposed in this year's budget, the relevant works in Northern Metropolis will be rolled out together with other livelihood-related infrastructures. Now, these projects involve land planning, development, transport, healthcare, arts and recreation, social welfare, education, drainage, sewage, water supply, waste management, and heritage conservation. And capital works expenditure will reach the peak, according to the Financial Secretary's medium-range forecast for this financial year and the coming 4 financial years. The annual capital works expenditure will increase to a yearly average of about $120 billion. This forecast is made exactly to avoid drastic fluctuations of construction volume. This forecast will also provide an indicator for government bureaus and departments to prioritize works according to the data. Now, on infrastructure planning, the government supports the needs of various policy areas. The Development Bureau implements infrastructure projects to achieve policy objectives. The Bureau also helps coordinate and manage projects required by other policy bureaus and provide technical guidance to ensure that all infrastructure projects are completed as planned, meeting both works quality and site safety requirements and in a cost-effective manner. And we fully agree with the motion that we should ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. In this regard, we have already adopted relevant measures to strengthen project management for works projects so as to enhance cost effectiveness and performance. The amendment also proposes that the government set up an interdepartmental group to comprehensively review the cost of public works projects. Last year, the Legislative Council also set up a subcommittee to study the relevant issue. A report is published. It has been published. The Development Bureau has completed a strategic study on the relatively high construction costs in Hong Kong. Now, we have also made reference to the views of the subcommittee mentioned. We'll implement cost control measures in 4 directions. We'll optimize procurement models. We will review construction design standards and requirements. We will apply advanced technologies and construction methods to enhance productivity. And we'll also streamline approval procedures. These measures will be rolled out progressively in collaboration with various departments to reduce construction costs. For example, the government has already directly procured MRC components for light public housing projects as well as large-scale E&M equipment for sewage treatment plant projects. And recently, according to the Transport and Logistics Bureau, the Northern LEUNG project will include mainland railway standards to enhance resource and construction efficiency. I'm also aware of the members' concerns about livelihood of construction workers. The government's investment in infrastructure, land, housing, and other projects drives development, and manpower resources are indispensable. We're continuing allocating resources to these projects, and as they progressively enter the construction stage, these works will create more jobs for the construction industry. We have also been strengthening training for construction industry practitioners, including professionals, technicians, and workers, so that industry employees can benefit from infrastructure development. President, I, along with the Undersecretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, will carefully listen to views of members in the debate and give a response later. I so submit.
Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. President, I would like to thank Mr. Chen Hak-kan for proposing this motion and the 5 members for proposing amendments. The Secretary for Development has just responded to the issues of infrastructure planning and management of works projects. I'm now going to explain the work of the SSTB in terms of the government's arrangements for allocating resources to public works projects and the overall management of public finances. As far as the allocation of resources to works projects is concerned, we fully appreciate the public expectation that the government will ensure that limited fiscal resources will be focused on projects that are most crucial to supporting economic development and meeting the pressing needs of the public. All along, in formulating the funding arrangements for projects under the Capital Works Program each year, the government takes into account the justifications, urgency, and technical feasibility of individual projects, the government's overall financial capability, as well as the priorities accorded by bureaus and departments to projects under their respective policy purviews, etc., and make decisions from a macro perspective to ensure that financial resources are properly utilized. In light of the government's fiscal position, we have asked bureaus and departments to further review various projects, and only projects that are conducive to achieving important policy objectives and meeting the most pressing needs of the community will be accorded priority for consideration. Projects that are at an advanced planning stage will continue to be taken forward. We have some projects in the Northern Metropolis that have been undertaken, and we have some other projects of people's livelihood being taken forward. The government's capital works expenditure will enter a period of high peaks. The capital works expenditure in the medium range forecast has been increased from the previous estimate to about $120 billion. To ensure that the progress of new and ongoing projects will not be constrained by the public finance situation, the government announced in this year's budget that it will expand the size of bond issuance and expects to issue a total of about $150 billion to $195 billion of government bonds each year, from 2025-26 to 2029-30. Apart from promoting the development of the bond market, the market capital raised will be put to good use to invest in relevant green and infrastructure projects to promote economic development. In response to members' suggestion that the government should optimize the allocation of resources to alleviate financial pressure and avoid cutting government expenditure relating to people's livelihood, I will elaborate on the government's approach to public finance management from a macro perspective. The government has all along adhered to the principle of keeping expenditure within the limits of revenues as stipulated in Article 107 of the Basic Law, and endeavors to restore fiscal balance to ensure the resilience and sustainability of public finances. The government's revenue and expenditure are broadly classified into 2 major accounts, the operating account and the capital account. Due to their composition and nature, the government has to manage them separately by adopting different financial objectives and methods. The operating account is to keep expenditure within the limits of revenue and aim at achieving a surplus. For a capital account, as capital works expenditure is an investment in the future, it may be supported by the surplus of the operating account and or the fiscal reserves. Market resources may also be flexibly utilized to deal with shortfall in revenue and expenditure. Therefore, the government's approach of issuing bonds to support public works expenditure is a good way to minimize the impact on the operating account and expenditure on people's livelihood. Additionally, the Financial Secretary outlined in this year's budget a reinforced fiscal consolidation program. The government will intensify efforts to control government operating expenditures while minimizing the impact on the general public. The Financial Secretary has instructed all policy bureaus and departments to further review resource allocation and work priorities and provide services to the public in a more cost-effective manner. For public works projects, As mentioned earlier, we will expand the government bond programs to ensure that the most urgent projects can be implemented at full speed without being impeded by the tight control on government expenditure. President, I would like to thank the member again for proposing the motion. I will listen to members' valuable views and suggestions on the implementation of public works projects and respond to members' concerns later. I so submit. Thank you, President.
Mr. Chang Kin-po, thank you, President. Hong Kong public works projects are criticized as expensive, and it always causes delay and overruns. It has an implications on livelihood-related projects. I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving this motion. I agree that we should review the priorities of public works projects, and we have to be bold in making reforms. Concerning priorities of public works, I think the government should come up with a list. There should be allocation of resources in a precise manner to ensure that resources go to people-related, livelihood-related projects such as housing projects, the Northern Metropolis project, as well as other infrastructure projects. And then we can take forward the non-urgent ones, including those that have to do with the environment. Every year we have to put in $120 billion into public works to ensure employment opportunities for construction workers. We should ensure that there won't be a gap in terms of talents as well as technologies to ensure sustainable development. I think the government should keep up with its effort in the Northern Main Line projects. The government is combining the Main Line projects as well as the Spur Line project. The Highways Department is setting up a task force to vet the procedure, and this helps compress the construction period by 2 years. It is expected that the Main Line as well as the Spur Line will be commissioned in 2034 together. We can adopt national railway standards and introduce innovative construction technologies from the mainland. We can make use of professional machinery, and with advanced materials, we can lower the cost by 20 to 30%. If we apply the same model to other infrastructure projects, it is expected that a lot of taxpayers' money can be saved, and time can be saved too. Construction works often are carried out during daytime, but in the mainland, they adopt a shift system. We should break these constraints. Without affecting local residents, we can have an all-day-round construction program. For example, this can be applied in non-residential areas or industrial areas. We can have 24/7 construction works. We can have a flexible construction schedule. We should deploy mitigation measures to protect residents. For some works, 2 weeks are spent, and this shows that we can greatly reduce construction time. To reduce construction cost, public works projects should be taken forward in a pragmatic manner. We should make use of durable materials so that we won't have to spend too much money on unnecessary materials. We should also promote modular integrated construction method. We should make use of prefabricated modules to save manpower and money. We can reduce construction time at source. With a fiscal deficit, the government should be bold enough to make reforms. We should review the priorities for public works. We should apply the same standards and remove barriers. We should come up with new mechanisms to ensure that projects can be taken forward in a timely manner. Thank you.
Mr. Tang Fei, I speak in support of Mr. Chen Hak-kan's original motion. And Thomas Sowell said there is no perfect solution. Sacrifices will have to be made. The original motion is about further reviewing the priorities of future public works, considering deferring non-urgent projects to alleviate the financial pressure on the government. So it's about making sure there are still infrastructure projects while trying to alleviate the financial pressure on the government. The other question is how we are going to review the priorities. The mechanism is very important as we have an executive-led structure. I think we have differing opinions, and this is demonstrated by the different stances of the members proposing amendments. We have some members saying that we need to consider the ecosystem of the industry and to safeguard livelihood of construction practitioners. For example, Mr. Gary ZHANG said we need to make sure there's still $120 billion worth of infrastructure project being taken forward. It's just that we should review the other projects. And we have Mr. Adrian HO, whom I agree with the most, that we should focus on management of construction costs, and there should be an interdepartmental group set up to review the costs of various public works projects. So it is about having a mechanism to manage the costs of the projects. And Mr. Dennis LEUNG, as an FTU member, said we needed to first deal with urgent projects that are related to people's livelihoods, such as transport infrastructure, public leisure facilities, and tourism-related facilities and support. So each member's amendment has a different opinion and a different priority. Should we prioritize protection of construction practitioners' livelihood? Should we put the public interests first? So, as I said, it's more important in having a mechanism to determine the priorities. And I think Dr. Lo Wai-kwok said correctly that we should have a framework for reviewing the priorities of public works projects, and that we should have some dimensions in the framework, whether we should dovetail with strategies, say the 15 5-year plan of the country in future, for future development, for people's livelihood, how many job opportunities are we creating, or whether it is, as Mr. Gary ZHANG said, we should put people's livelihood first, put convenience first, whether it is affordable in public finances, whether it is the right timing to undertake the project, even if it is the right project to do. I think more importantly, we need to not consult the stakeholders on individual projects, because that is already what the Public Works Subcommittee is doing. It is more important to consult stakeholders on this proposed framework. If we have a consensus, then we can still take an executive-led approach and review and determine the priorities for public works projects. I believe we can resolve the issue in this way. Mr. Lau Kok Fan, I speak in support of Mr. Chen Hak-kan's original motion. With the government being in a tight fiscal position, we need to review the priorities and costs of public works projects. The essence of the motion is to avoid cutting expenditure related to people's livelihood. There are different opinions, but I think we can reach a consensus. I am going to propose an approach that can safeguard livelihood of construction practitioners' livelihood, as well as avoid cutting expenditure related to people's livelihood, I will propose different ways to increase cost effectiveness of public works projects. We have talked about different approaches to cutting construction costs. I think it is more important to make good use of every penny of the government. We have traditionally engaged consultancy companies and then conduct tendering. Often it will take much time, and then as the projects are implemented in phases, that will in turn increase costs in manpower and materials. There are also fluctuations at different phases in the costs. So we have also inadequate accountability in implementation of projects. So there are often blind spots in planning, so that there are variation of orders. It is often the cause for additional costs in construction. So lately we've been using design and build model, and we've been making use of ECI, early contract involvement, to improve the situation. We have made use of that for Cyclone and the Northern Metropolis Highway projects. With this, we should be able to cut time needed for projects. And for the Cyclone project, when they tried to obtain funding approval for the Finance Committee, they did say they managed to cut costs that way. So we should make sure we are making use of these approaches in future works projects to cut construction time and costs. In order to make sure we have the same number of infrastructure projects taken forward, it does not mean that we need to have all of that input coming from the government. We can still have input of the government being channeled to projects related to people's livelihood. We can make use of PPP, public-private partnership, build, operate, transfer models, the different models for undertaking projects. People are most familiar with BOT model and some PPP models, and I think with these models, we do not need early investment from the government. Say for the BOT model, we had Western Harbor Crossing and Thailand Tunnel having bad experiences, but there is always room for improvement. We can make use of a fairer mechanism. We can also have the government providing a retainer when there is inadequate flow. We can make adjustments so that the government do not need to have a significant investment early on, and that we can continue taking forward relevant projects. So I urge the government to consider different financing models. Lastly, it's about how we are compressing the costs for public works projects and streamlining the workflow for vetting. I think it's about us trying to go smart in cutting costs. As members said, we should make good use of bond capital raised to take forward projects in the Northern Metropolis while not cutting expenditure related to people's livelihood. So we should consider our future direction, how we can protect people's livelihood still. Mr. Shanghai Leung. We have seen great adjustments in the economy and the government being in a relatively tight fiscal position. It is time for us to review the priorities for works projects, especially large-scale projects that have a long-standing impact. I speak in support of Mr. Hak-kan's original motion to make sure we are taking forward the most pressing projects and for the government to review the priorities for future public works projects to optimize the allocation of public resources to enhance the speed and efficiency of key projects. This is in line with the suggestion of C15+ to monitor the costs of public works projects and to ensure the key projects are being taken forward. I do thank the administration for heeding our feedback so far. It is not an easy task to review the priorities for public works projects. We need to do so not only when the economy is bad, but also when the economy is good. We need to strike a balance between different interests to make sure when formulating policy, we are considering the core development strategy of Hong Kong. We need to have systematic reforms to enhance effectiveness and efficiency. It is about streamlining workflows, improving the tendering process, and breaking the barriers of communication between different departments so that we can take forward key projects effectively and efficiently. The Northern Metropolis projects are strategic to the development of Hong Kong, especially for the university town and the Hotel Corporation Zone. They are, of course, prioritized projects. We should not defer them because the government is in a tight fiscal position, because that is going to facilitate our development. If we look at a neighboring city, Shenzhen, they are INT oriented. Singapore is also a leader. We only have INT accounting for 1.5% of the GDP. We have much to catch up on. We need the Northern Metropolis infrastructure projects to help us move forward and create quality job opportunities. I suggest in particular that we should have a green channel for the funding of infrastructure projects. And we should also make use of BIM and NIC various technologies to take forward projects in a more efficient manner. We can also make use of JIRA for project management to ensure there is proper progress of implementation of projects. Often infrastructure projects would take 10 years in Hong Kong. For large-scale projects in the mainland, it will only take 5 years. So we need to resolve this core issue. My suggestion to the Chief Executive for the policy address this year is to make use of JIRA. And Mr. Chan Hak-kan talked about the district cooling system project. I myself would like to talk about another project. I actually asked for the adoption of NEC. The project did not make use of this approach. And since 2009, the Development Bureau first proposed NEC. We still have projects not making use of this approach. There is definitely room for improvement. I agree with what Ms. Brenda Lin said earlier in her opening remarks, that we need to set some benchmarks and make use of technologies to undertake projects in a more efficient manner. We are trying to review the priorities of future public works projects to optimize the allocation of public resources to make sure the key projects are taken forward in an effective and efficient manner. This is then a good use of public money, and make sure projects relating to people's livelihood are taken forward to benefit the public so that Hong Kong can turn a new page in the economy. I so submit speaking in support of Mr. Chan Hak-kan's original motion.
Ms. Chen Yuming, thank you, Deputy President. I thank Mr. Gary Zhang for moving this motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. As proposed in the motion and the amendments, I think members share the goodwill of finding ways to alleviate the financial pressure on the public coffers with a focus on promoting livelihood-related works so as to enhance speed and efficiency. The Northern Metropolis project will be kick-started. The works will reach its peak. Now, the Northern Metropolis will support housing development and the development of emerging industries and post-secondary education. So even the chief executive said the Northern Metropolis is a matter of urgency and that Northern Metropolis development should be completed in time. This shows the significance of the project. We need to optimize the use of resources. I support the original motion, and that is the government should abide by the infrastructure-led approach whilst reviewing the priorities for public works. Priority should be given to the railway project and public works in Northern Metropolis, and as well as the Northern Metropolis Highway. For example, in Northern Metropolis, there are plans for public housing, and there are also 3 public housing projects that will start intake next year in Kowloon North and Fanling North NDA. Now, there are 15 such sites that will begin intake in 2029. We're concerned about transport infrastructure. Northern Link has not yet been completed, and that means residents will need to rely on the existing Fanling and Treasury station. With limited space outside, there may be long queues at the railway stations. We need to expedite the construction of transport infrastructure in Northern Metropolis to alleviate the pressure. The second example is about rural areas surrounding Northern Metropolis. Infrastructure development is lagging behind and very often is prone to flooding. Last week, in some rural villages, there were floods. Residents were affected, not to mention economic losses. Now, the works involved improving people's livelihood. So whilst reviewing the priorities of public works, the same should go for Northern Metropolis, and that priority should be given. For public works in Northern Metropolis, many of them are a matter of urgency. They will promote industrial developments. Again, this will be considered in terms of a scale and the objectives of these projects. Like the chief executive said, these projects are closely related to people's livelihood. These are urgent projects. So we need to take forward these projects to promote the development of the local economy and bring jobs. So whilst reviewing the priorities of public works, some works may be deferred. The government should draw up comprehensive indicators. Apart from considering the urgency of projects, the government should also consider the cost effectiveness and whether the treatment, any group in the community will be treated unfairly. The impact on stakeholders should also be considered, especially the medium to long-term impact. Some projects may not be as cost-effective, but they will bring a lot of convenience to residents, especially elderly residents in the local community, and this can help develop a silver economy. For some arts installation projects, they may not be cost-effective, albeit an attraction for visitors and locals. So again, we should rethink. I so submit Mr. Eric Yim. Thank you, Deputy President. I support Mr. Gary ZHANG's motion. We are under a lot of fiscal pressure. We need to consider very carefully the allocation of resources so as to give priority to what is most needed and ensure efficiency. For key projects, we need to make sure that they can be expedited as quickly as possible. Now, my suggestion is this. Whilst reviewing the priorities for public works, the government should establish a set of scientific principles so that comprehensive assessments can be made on, say, cost effectiveness and the rate of return for these projects. And that quantitative assessment should be conducted to prioritize the public works. For non-urgent projects, they can be fine-tuned. For example, instead of resurfacing the whole section of non-major roads, we can just go ahead with partial improvements. And that for other non-urgent projects, such as the conversion of the pitch to artificial turf, we can also defer them. As for projects that are crucial to economic development and strategic, as well as projects involving elderly education, healthcare, etc., a new procurement or new tendering model can be adopted so that when the smaller projects are bundled together, it will be more attractive. It will have an appeal for contractors. This can also lower the cost of tendering and enhance the overall efficiency. The government should focus resources on projects that will bring economic benefits to Hong Kong and generate social value. For example, in relation to the road network in Northern Metropolis, the highway spans 23 kilometers only, but it will not be commissioned until 2036, and by then it will only be partially commissioned. We should introduce mainland construction standards. We should use the relevant machinery and materials in order to control costs and shorten construction period. The government should regularize this approach, and that means bundling projects together and fine-tuning proposals. Indicators should be introduced for the purpose of assessing tenders and assessing the cost effectiveness. But in the end of March this year, the fiscal reserves in Hong Kong dropped to 647.4 billion Hong Kong dollars. So there is a pressing need to optimize the allocation of public resources and take forward reforms. We need to defer non-urgent projects so that we can focus our resources on taking forward the Northern Metropolis development so as to bring benefits to our economy and our society. I so submit. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, Deputy President. Public works are crucial to the future of Hong Kong. We believe that works should be expedited in order to meet the public's expectation. In the past, studies were conducted one after another for major projects. We waited for the publication of reports. Now, on planning for Northern Metropolis development, the government has taken a bold step. However, in terms of implementation details, there is a need to expedite the progress, especially for Hung Shui Kiu NDA and Santin Technopole. Only by doing so will we be able to bring impetus to our economy and instill confidence in society. Now, for the EIA report in particular, I think there is more to be decided. In the past, it would take a long time to complete an EIA report. A consultant may take a year to go through all the procedures. This eats into our competitiveness. We need to act quickly to attract multinational corporations to set a presence in Hong Kong. That means we should exercise flexibility. For example, the government's technocrats can make a start by preparing a preliminary assessment report before the consultants take up the work. this can help shorten the time. Recently, the Secretary for Development, Ms. Benedict Lin, has said that she won't rule out granting land directly to industries in Northern Metropolis instead of having to go through the CN Council's approval process every time. I think this is a very good idea. An express channel can be set up, and that throughout the process we can have multiple vetting happening at the same time. This can enhance the efficiency as a whole. Similarly, another problem is this. Many enterprises are concerned about infrastructure development in Northern Metropolis. We need to provide basic utilities and a road network before enterprises can set up presence there. Good infrastructure is a prerequisite for good investment. Especially in the face of fiscal pressure, we must have a profit-making mindset. That means we can consider innovative financing models. The government and the business sector can work together. For example, the Sha Tin residential development, the first city, was a very good example of public-private partnership. So Northern Metropolis development success hinges on collaboration between the government and the business sector. Now for public works, there is duplication of duties among government departments. We need to cut red tape and enhance coordination among government bureaus and departments. We acknowledge the efforts made by civil servants. Streamlining workflow can help us focus on what matters. Deputy President, we need to act quickly so that we can grasp firmly the opportunities presented. We need to cut red tape and take forward development in a more efficient manner. Hong Kong is an international metropolis. We need to showcase our capabilities. I think we need to be professional in rationalizing work processes and achieve breakthroughs so that Northern Metropolis development can be expedited as quickly as possible. This is not just about the economy, it's also about people's livelihood, as also made.
Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving this motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. I believe many members of the public are concerned about this motion. Like Mr. Gary ZHANG said, we only have a limited amount of money, so we can only do what we can with these resources. The government has been thinking of ways to cut back on expenditure, and we have to save up money at each juncture. We understand that it's not an easy task. When saving up money, can the government consider this? Now I have to stress that construction works bring about job opportunities, so we have to carry on with the public works. I think Mr. Gary ZHANG's point is that we have to review the priorities for public works. We have to identify the non-urgent projects and those that cannot bring about significant economic benefits. We can defer them. If they are not urgent, perhaps you can shift things around and prioritize other projects first. It's better that you do this. than doing things that would affect people's livelihood. Say, for example, the $2 public transport fare scheme. This is a benefit for our elderlies. It's best that we keep this scheme. However, at the end, we saw adjustments to the scheme still. From the public's perspectives, there are non-urgent projects that cost a lot of money. If they cannot bring about economic benefits, you can swap things around and defer these non-urgent projects. This will help ease people's burden. There are projects that can directly benefit people. Well, for the $2 public transport fare scheme, the scheme is adjusted and people can feel the impact. So I think we have to take into consideration the public's perception. Now, Mr. Gary ZHANG's motion is very practical. We all agree that public works projects can bring about job opportunities. However, there are non-urgent projects. For example, the government deferred the district cooling system project, and by doing it, it saved $40 billion. Why could this project be deferred? This is because there will be new technologies. And at that point of time, we didn't see significant cost effectiveness of the project, so we deferred it. So we are really just talking about the priorities for public works. There are public works that cost exorbitant fees. If you can eliminate just one project, it could help you save up a lot of money. So from the public's perspective, by doing away with one project, you can cut back on expenditure. Now, on the $120 billion of expenditures, as mentioned, last year the cost was $90 billion. I think we should leave some buffer room. We can do what we can with the resources available. We should not be too rigid. We should be flexible. So I have reservation about maintaining the annual capital works expenditure at $120 billion. We should make things flexible. We have to show people our determination that we can cut back on cost. Thank you. Mr. Ben Chen. Deputy President, we have 300,000 practitioners in the construction industry. This industry is an important part of our economy. The construction sector contributes to our society as well as our economy. Mr. Gary ZHANG hopes that we can be flexible. For non-urgent projects that do not display cost effectiveness, we can defer them. Take the district cooling system project as an example. We can only recover cost 50 years later. Maybe we cannot even recover any cost. We can defer this kind of projects so that we can give a break to our public coffers. By being flexible, we can prioritize projects with potential. I'm referring to projects that can improve our economy and people's livelihood. I see that other members do not object this idea. Also, we should keep public works at a certain cost. We should prevent drastic fluctuations in construction volume. I think this is about how much money we have. According to Zhang, we have limited resources, but we have unlimited desire. So how can we cope with the fiscal deficit? This is a major concern of the public. We hope the government can make good use of its resources. The government has been rolling out a lot of measures. For example, the centralized procurement model. I agree with this approach, and I do see that the government has yielded results. However, we cannot rely on the public coffers to pay for these public works. We cannot rely on the government's efforts solely on monitoring the cost of these projects either. If you lower the cost, the construction sector may complain. If you reduce the benefits for the public will complain as well. Well, we only have this much money in the public coffer, so what can we do? Perhaps we can bring in private investment and capital for public works projects so that we can carry on with these projects, and at the same time we can support the construction industry and take care of people's livelihood. For example, we can adopt the build and transfer model. We can have the private sector invest in the project. We can have them construct the project, and we can hand over the government for management. We only have a limited amount of money, but for contractors, they can resort to every means to save up on the cost. Then we won't have to worry about delays or cost overrun, and we can be more flexible in terms of financing. I think this is doable. Now, there have been criticisms that the tunnels in Hong Kong are very expensive. Well, we have the same situation all over the world. For example, some student hostels are built by private sector and they're passed over to the relevant party for management. Take, for example, waste disposal facilities. They are constructed and operated by the private sector as well. So there are many public works projects in the pipeline. For the more important projects that are urgent, can they be prioritized by adopting the build, operate, and transfer model? I think it is a good timing for us to explore this model now. Well, I was told that some people do want to invest in these projects because they can get fixed returns from these projects. This is a good option for the private sector now. Then we can ensure economic diversity. Thank you. Mr. Michael Luke. Today we're discussing this motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. We all understand the principle. We need straws to make bricks. In this year's budget, the government removed the $2,500 of student subsidies, and parents criticized this measure. Also, we're seeing an increase in healthcare costs because of the reform. For construction works, I think we need to keep rolling out public works because it has to do with investment for the future and also have to do with our construction workers' livelihood. The original motion suggests that we defer non-urgent projects. Mr. Dennis Leung amended this motion to first deal with urgent projects. What is the difference between the two? What does it mean by non-urgent projects? It's hard for us to come up with a clear definition. The government may find a project urgent, but for district stakeholders, these projects may not be urgent. We council members noticed that some of the projects have been dragged on for a long time. Take the link road from Longfu Road to Chengwan Road in Tuen Mun. It is to resolve traffic congestion problems at Wangchu Road. However, we lack a timetable to take forward the construction work. This is because the government has failed to set aside money for that. Also, another construction works involving Tuen Mun Road has again been dragged on. Not to mention major projects like the Tuen Mun Bypass project that cost dozens of billion dollars. They're stuck. And Area 16 of Tuen Mun, we need a sports ground there, but because of financial problems, we haven't been able to materialize it. Of course, these projects are not as urgent as the Northern Metropolis or public housing projects, but this has to do with people's livelihood. Something that sports facilities are bonus for people. But I don't agree. Without sports facilities, how can people keep up with their health? And then we may give rise to those who scalp tickets. Now, within this current term government, we set up the subcommittee to study the effectiveness, costs, and management of public works projects. I chaired this subcommittee, and this committee was set up under the House Committee. The chairman of the House Committee submitted our report to the Secretary for Development. We're ranked the 9th around the world in terms of our construction costs. Now, in the interest of time, I want to make 6 points. First, we have to be a facilitator. We want to streamline the design of public works projects as well as the approval process. How can we streamline approval process? We need KPIs. Now, a number of members said that we have too many consultancy studies. They waste money and time. Can we streamline the relevant procedure? Can we do away with EIA requirements or technical feasibility assessment reports? A lot of times we have a study for each project. It wastes time and money. Now, centralized procurement of construction materials. We have to standardize the design of public housing projects. For schools as well, we don't need distinguished characters for each school. Also, of course, we have to dovetail with national standards so that we can have more options in terms of material procurement. Also, we have to continue to monitor how we control cost. This is in line with the strategic study done by the government. We also can carry on with the BOT model. We can explore how we can make use of money or continue to take forward public works projects and at the same time save money. Then we can focus our resources on people's livelihood as well as the underprivileged. Thank you.
Mr. Rincon. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of Mr. Chen Hak-kan's original motion. We're at a time of economic adjustment. We face tremendous challenges. In 2024-25, the public works expenditure is $990 billion, and that is 17% up from the years before. And we expect the expenditure is going to increase from $90 billion to $120 billion. When we see an 11.7% decrease in fiscal reserves, it is now the right time for us to review the priorities for public works projects and consider deferring non-urgent objects and optimize the allocation of public resources to channel the funds to projects related to people's livelihood. That should alleviate the financial pressure on the government and avoid cutting expenditure related to people's livelihood. Many of the projects were derived when the economy was good, when the economy was growing fast, but then we already saw how 27 projects would go over budget, and that the circumstances have really changed now. The Audit Commission said the cost for going over budget was incomprehensive planning, and we have scrutinized 500 odd projects, and we have already saved 16% of the costs. But it is only about optimization of the cost management rather than a complete review of the projects to see if there's still an actual demand for such projects. We should prioritize the projects related to people's livelihoods, such as public housing infrastructure, redevelopment of public hospitals, as well as public markets. These are directly related to people's livelihood. We should adopt indicators such as how many people are being served. And we have the second tier of projects such as Northern Metropolis infrastructure projects that are important to the strategic development of Hong Kong. In this tier of the projects, we should adopt the indicators of how many job opportunities are being created and how much contribution it is going to make to the economy. For the Northern Metropolis, it's going to make significant contributions in those two areas, so we should undertake such projects. And then we also need to deal with the projects that are to revamp the historical monuments and the other projects, so we can set thresholds for, say, GDP recovery. Say when it gets to a good level, then we can continue with such less urgent projects. We can also adopt different management models, such as public-private partnership model that would allow for sharing of risks. We can also try to introduce AI management to review the experience of the successful PPP projects and Singapore's practices, so that we can have an AI management framework for Northern Metropolis projects. We need to allocate resources effectively to make good use of public money. The CUHK study in cost management had done some simulations for high-value infrastructure projects such as cross-boundary infrastructure and other INT projects would bring about 1.8% contribution rather than the general level of 0.9%. I think we should look into this direction of development to make Hong Kong's economy more resilient. Thank you. I so submit. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of Mr. Chen Hak-kan's original motion for a report on 30th of June. It says that we have a significant fiscal deficit, and I agree that the government should invest in the future. Right now, we are estimating that the cost for public works expenditure would be $120 billion. We are going to finance the project with bonds. I think we should issue longer-term bonds so that we won't face short-term pressure in paying back the bonds. I also agree with what is said by Mr. Chen Hak-kan that we should prioritize projects related to people's livelihood. We have the Northern Link project being quite innovative, that we are adopting national standards and save costs. We need to do more, however. We need to streamline workflow to cut costs. We have recently streamlined the development controls procedure to make spade-ready sites more readily available, but then we note that we are now have less sites than before. So how can we actually convince people that we are doing well with the streamlining of procedures. And it is said for the university town site, it is only in 2031 that we would complete site formation works. Since we are to develop into international post-secondary education hub, why are we waiting until 2028-29 to start formation of land? We need to start resumption of land early in order to hasten the process. We should also review the effectiveness of the efficiency of streamlining of administrative controls to make sure we are achieving our policy intent. We need to review the functions of the relevant office to strengthen cost management. The FSTB can perhaps intervene early on and play a gatekeeping role in the relevant office to see if they are performing cost management functions effectively. We have also heard the subcommittee of the to study the effectiveness, costs, and management of public works projects speak. The chairman said they have recently submitted a report. They have made some suggestions, and that we should have more scrutiny and interactions before funding approval is to be obtained in the Finance Committee. That should enhance cost management. As a member of the Public Accounts Committee, I have noted before for multiple public works projects, we have seen issues with interdepartmental coordination as well as monitoring of performance of consultancy companies and contractors. We have made use of innovative approaches in cost management, but we need to review the current arrangements still to make sure we are doing well in planning so that we can minimize contingency allocation. I hope the government will improve the mechanism and enhance supervision of contractors' performance to make sure we can control costs. As the chief executive said on 1st of July, we need to actually achieve effective performance. So I hope in the policy address we will have innovative approaches to control costs to make sure every penny of the government is well spent. I shall submit speaking in support of Mr. Chan Hak-kan's original motion. Mr. Chen Hong, I would like to thank Mr. Chan Hak-kan for proposing the original motion and the other members for proposing amendments so that we have the opportunity to discuss how we should take forward public works projects. We need to continue to take forward strategic infrastructure projects and projects related to people's livelihood, but we should have priorities. In the end, we want to make sure we meet public expectations, but enhance competitiveness at the same time. We are seeing a shrinkage in the construction industry, which is why it is important for the government to maintain its investment in infrastructure projects. I do see the government having multiple measures to control costs in public works projects. We have achieved good results so far. It is important for the civil service to have accountability. It is in fact one of the suggestions I made to the chief executive. From the conception to the construction stages of public works projects, we are moving from upstream to downstream. We first need to have a project definition statement to set out the justifications for the project, policy objectives, and what public expectations are to be met with the project. To also make sure the project will not overlap with other projects in function. We will also have afterwards the different departments assess the technical feasibility of the relevant projects and have a technical feasibility statement published so that various factors are thoroughly considered and the costs will be assessed in this stage. And then we would have a resource allocation system. We will then have the public works project flesh out, and then the detailed design stage will commence. What is important is that in the upstream stage, only the demands are set out and the basic functions are set out. The location will be determined, but then these people will not be held accountable. They do not need to match the costs, so the costs can really balloon. For the works departments, their function is to meet user expectations. For the special demands, for example, to mitigate site constraints, they need to make use of a design that would incur higher costs, and that would really mean for a significant increase in costs if we need specific materials and specific measures and designs. So we have not seen the cost management part reaching the upstream personnel. So the upstream users, if they do not have awareness for managing costs, there is a mismatch. So in order to increase accountability, we need the relevant personnel to take ownership and strictly control the budget and costs. When making use of public money to take forward public works projects, the personnel should consider the cost to be paid out of their own pockets to make sure every penny is well spent. We need to have regard to actual demand to review the priorities of public works projects and derive the specific estimates. We should also make sure the location is the best for the project to enhance cost effectiveness. We also need to make sure the works departments go from the perspective of cost effectiveness. We should have training provided to officers so that we can review experience of previous projects to enhance cost management and nurture ownership thinking. Thank you. I still submit.
Mr. Perry, you. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving the motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects, as well as the amendments moved by other members. Mr. Dennis LEUNG, in his amendment, refers to dealing first with urgent projects such as transport infrastructure, public leisure facilities, and tourism-related facilities and support. I'm fully on board with that. For example, we want to organize island hopping tours. We need piers and other transport infrastructure. And I thank Ms. Bernadette Lin for agreeing to review the pier improvement projects, as well as reviewing the pier construction proposals. Now, Deputy President, infrastructure brings positive benefits to people's livelihood in the economy. I remember when the Express Rail Link station was to be built in West Kowloon, there were wide repercussions in the community. But now the fact speaks so loud that since commissioning of the Express Rail Link, it has become the major artery for Hong Kong to be connected to the mainland. Now that we have a 1 hour living circle, it forms a major driver for the revival of the tourism industry in Hong Kong. In 2024, 7.49 million visitors came to Hong Kong via Express Rail Link. That's 17%. And if we could go back in time, I I hope that the XRL station could be built as quickly as possible. The government must not drag on its feet and reduce investment in infrastructure because of fiscal deficit. On the contrary, we need to do more for the sake of economic recovery. Now we need to integrate into our country's development plan. That means we need to continue to enhance the capacity of the BCPs. During weekends, we see crowds, especially at the Liantang Hon Wai BCP, and the new Hak-kan port will not be commissioned until 2026. This will further enhance our BCP capacities. At the moment, we only have the Hon Wai BCP allowing a direct drive-through of vehicles along with the visitors. When it was first commissioned in 2023, it had not reached capacity, but now it's very, very popular. Very soon, its capacity will be reached. Especially during weekends, we have recorded over 91 or 910,000 visits. That's 3 times the design capacity. So there's a serious overload. So this is a reminder for the government. This is a very popular and it's a convenient BCP, but because of design constraints, it is difficult to enhance its capacity further. I understand the Security Bureau has harnessed technology to strive to enhance the efficiency of clearance, but there are still hardware constraints. For Liantang BCP, it's not designed for group tours. So according to the industry, the BCP's limited capacity would hamper Hong Kong's appeal to tourists. So for the new Hong Kong port, we do hope that the group tour arrangements could be refined to help address the issue of overcrowding. According to the Bureau, at the moment, only franchise buses could make use of the express channel at New Hong Kong Port. More should be done. It is urgent that we press on with the shuttlecock BCP redevelopment project to promote the development in South Lantau. As I understand, everything is ready across the Shenzhen River, but on our side, we only conduct a feasibility study this year. I am very anxious. I hope the government can speed up its work so that we can facilitate more group tours to use that BCP and give our tourists a more pleasant experience. Dr. Adrian HO. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for his motion and I support him. I also appreciate the amendment moved by Mr. Adrian HO. Indeed, the local construction cost is very high. And it seems that we're relying too much on consultancy studies, but in fact, we don't really need the studies. We have a lot of competent civil servants. They have vast experience in roads and railway construction projects. These projects are not that difficult. We don't always need a consultant. Let's not forget that out of $100 of budget, the consultant's fees take up at least $4 to $6, and then there'll be spin-offs for site staff, about 8%. So that means out of $100 in our budget, we spent about $12 on consultancy. Can we lower the cost? This is exactly what Mr. Adrian HO said. Of course, Mr. Tony Chair also talked about the exorbitant fees. Now we spent $1 billion or $10 billion on public works, and that the fees for consultants are pegged to the government's master pay scale. Now, shouldn't we ask civil servants to do the job instead? The Kwai Ching District Council visited the Legislative Council in May, and one of the issues covered in our conversation was that for livelihood-related and local community issues, very often a long process was involved in making decisions. So on the 4th of July, we went to one of these spots, and that's near Zhouyu Estate. There's a path leading to Liking Road, about 23 meters slope. And the matter has been discussed for over a decade. But now, even after a decade, we still haven't decided on the matter because of financial constraints. And now, if we are to prioritize public works, there will be a longer delay. So, after the conversation, we had a visit. There was a delegation of over 40, comprising government officials and lawmakers. And we found that it's not really complex. If you want to enhance efficiency, you shouldn't spend time preparing papers. According to government officials, this paper to be submitted to the Legislative Council won't be ready until next year at the earliest. But we've been discussing that for over a decade. Why don't you burn the midnight oil and submit the paper to us the following day? And then I asked the government how much would it cost. There was a lot of hesitation. The answer I got was, I don't know, maybe $100–200 million. And I was told that MIC and prefab components will be used. I was told, for example, with the use of prefab materials, everything would be ready for installation just overnight. And yet, when I asked how long it would take, I was told 2 to 3 years. Well, it takes 2 to 3 years to build a skyscraper in the Middle East. So when I pressed the other side, it said half a year. And according to Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, it could be done in just 5 months. And that's because of the lack of coordination among government departments. They are wasting our money and our time. It's just a lift and a footbridge. Why are we spending 3 years and $200 million on it? Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving the motion today so that we can discuss the matter of reviewing priorities for public works and other matters. The public coffers is under pressure. It is estimated that by 2025-2060, there'll be a deficit of $67 billion, and public works, capital works expenditure will go up to $120 billion. So it is only right that the Legislative Council review the priorities for public works together to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. According to the 2024 World Competitiveness Report, infrastructure development in Hong Kong ranked 3rd globally. Now, Hong Kong is competitive, but construction cost is also very high. We're in the top 3 around the world. It takes a long time to complete the projects, and that is a cost for escalating costs. In the face of financial pressure, we need to review the priority of public works in future so as to consider the cost effectiveness, and that the government will roll out the projects in an orderly manner. I have the following suggestions. I think there is a consensus in the community about the priority projects. They include Northern Metropolis and projects related to the economy and people's livelihood. The government has indicated that there will be bonds issued, that there will also be a public-private partnership as well as a large-scale land disposal approach. I support those. But against the fiscal tightening, the government should collaborate more with the private sector on major infrastructure, such as the Northern Link, the anti-Northeast Link, as well as other major roads. This is the approach adopted by the mainland and other countries. We should invite the private sector to invest more in infrastructure to alleviate the financial burden on the government. The second suggestion is this: the government should review the need for certain public works projects, especially against the backdrop of a digital economy and the latest trends such as public markets. Are they still necessary? For example, we earlier discussed the new public market in Kutong North costing over close to $800 million. It comprises 4 stories with 140 pitches. Now, many are worried about the low occupancy rate because of the change in the operation of traditional markets. We should review the function of these markets. For example, we can include tourism elements in these markets, like the cooked food stores or fairs in other countries, or even like the market in Tin Shui Wai. If need be, we can build a bigger market. For projects with technical difficulties, including underground space development and reprovisioning of public facilities into rock caverns, we should just pause and think, because the construction costs are always high if caverns are involved. That's 5 times the cost of at-grade development. So perhaps we could put these projects on the shelf at the moment. Now, for the master layout plan for cavern development, we can develop data centers and other AI-related I&T uses. This can bring benefits to the industries. We need to prioritize public works to ensure that the public works are rolled out in an orderly manner, so as to avoid escalation of construction cost and drastic increase in construction volume. We should also streamline the development process, make better use of technology, so that we can achieve value for money and maintain our competitiveness. I so submit.
Mr. Peter Xu. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for raising this motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. We understand the government is facing a tough fiscal position. Despite so, we should not terminate all public works projects. Instead, we should review the priorities for public works, and we should rearrange the priority for large, medium, and small-scale projects. I thank Mr. Chen for moving this motion so that we can have a discussion here. According to this year's budget in the coming 5 years, the cost for public works projects will cost $120 billion compared to $90 billion last year. Compared to 2020-21, we see an increase of 62%. For those in the public works sector, of course, this is good news. However, we need to strike a balance. For economy and livelihood-related projects, we have to prioritize them, especially the Northern Metropolis project and housing projects. We have to allocate resources to these projects first. As for facilities that see saturation, for example, upgrading of parks, we can defer them. Is it that we should do away with this kind of projects completely? No. For parks and schools, they may need upgrading or renovation. However, we don't necessarily need large-scale retrofitting or renovation. There are LCSD facilities. They look new, but they need to be upgraded. This is because the screws are rusted. All other parts, including the plastic panels, look new. We just need to replace the screws and nails. So I think the government needs to pay attention. We have to use the right kind of product so that we can eliminate any unnecessary renovation. In terms of cost, there was previously a subcommittee to study the effectiveness, cost, and management of public works projects in this council. According to papers, a lot of time was spent on design and construction works, and 30 to 40% is paperwork. I know the current term government has worked very hard. It has tried its best. I hope processes could be further streamlined so that we can reduce the construction time. Also, we should make good use of public-private partnership. We have to leverage the financial capabilities of the private sector. The Northern Metropolis, there are 80 enterprises that have signed agreements, and the total investment capital reached $100 billion. So we can invite people from the business sector to take part in these projects. Solely relying on the government efforts is not enough. So I hope the government can invite different parties to join these projects. To reduce construction cost, well, we have to look at workers' pay. I know the government has earlier on suspended the labor importation scheme. It has stopped bringing in construction workers to Hong Kong. This is because we have to prioritize employment of local workers. Many people criticize the high pay of local construction works. If we are to compare ourselves with other places like Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, our pay is 3 times higher. Compared to Singapore, our pay is 70% higher. This is because we see an aging population problem. The average age of construction workers in Hong Kong is 47. Some of them are as old as 57 years old. The construction cost is high because of the median wage of workers. We're trying to integrate ourselves into the Greater Bay Area. If we aren't able to control cost, we will see lower competitiveness. So we have to take this matter seriously. Thank you. Dr. Starry Lee, I thank Mr. Gary Zhang for raising this motion today. I think we had a very meaningful discussion because it is about making good use of public funds. Every city and country needs to think about how to sustain growth. With cyclical volatility, we have to maintain expansion of public resources. And on this basis, the SAR government has been issuing bonds for investment. Let's look at our country. Despite the difficult challenges, it tries to maintain a 5% GDP growth. So we need a series of measures. We need loose monetary policy because of the linked exchange rate system. We cannot focus too much on the monetary policies. But if you look at our country, for the top 10 work missions, under expansionary public expenditure, the major thing to do is to boost consumption and to expand domestic needs. Second mission, promote new productive forces as well as modern development. What I want to say is that we need an expansionary policy. We don't want to affect our infrastructure projects or people's job opportunities. What I want to point out is that we need to consider implementing measures to ensure that we can sustain our GDP growth. Our country has set aside $300 billion for sovereign bonds. It has also expanded its elderly care services and other types of services. There are more application scenarios for consumption. And there is also e-payment measures. And these are all measures rolled out by our country. With this debate, we have to ask this question: with fiscal constraints in Hong Kong, how can we allocate resources? Public works is an important expenditure for investing in the future. If we do not allocate enough resources for public works projects, there will be wide implications. However, we're seeing a drop in terms of investment in other areas. We want the government to spend money on other areas too. Then how come we cannot save up money for public works? It's not about saving money for the sake of it. It's that with limited resources, we have to be frugal. We have to rearrange the priorities. I believe Mr. Gary ZHANG raised this motion today because we need to review how we use our resources. Even with economic doldrums, we're investing in public works projects because it has its cost effectiveness. However, we are seeing a drop in expenditure in other areas. So likewise, perhaps we can do something about our public works projects by reviewing their priorities. Now, under these circumstances, I met with the Secretary yesterday, and I understand the Secretary is trying hard to streamline the procedures. With fiscal constraints, if we do not lower cost, we won't be able to take forward other policies. Our country's policy is to take forward major infrastructure facilities and projects for people's livelihood. And I agree that we should have the participation of the private sector. Should we bring in the private sector at an earlier stage? Should we introduce elements that guide them to devote capital into these projects? My time is up. Thank you. Mr. Benson Look, I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG for moving this motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. I also thank other members for the amendments. In year 2025-26 budget, the Financial Secretary said the government will increase public works expenditure to tie in with the economy and livelihood-related projects. And the cost will go up from $90 billion from last year to $120 billion in future. And the government will continue to monitor the cost effectiveness of projects, and based on the priority, the government will take forward these projects in an orderly manner. The government has had plans to monitor the planning and cost control of various projects. However, for some projects, there have been concerns about their progress and costs. For example, in the project to relocate Sha Tin sewage treatment works to caverns, we are at the final stage of this project. However, there are concerns whether there is room to delay or defer this project. If we do so, the costs will go up significantly. I think that in order to promote economy and livelihood-related project, it's important, but we have to think about how to ensure value for money. We have to strike a balance. Like the original motion says, we have to review the priorities for public works and prioritize projects relating to the economy and people's well-being. We have to ensure that we can yield benefits through these projects. I have the following suggestions. First, for the Northern Metropolis project, it is an important project for Hong Kong's future, and it is also a major driver. So we have to take forward this project in full steam. However, take Lantau Tomorrow as well as the Kao Yi Chau Artificial Islands projects as an example. It is also a major development project, but it involves a lot of manpower and investment. With the challenges we face and the tight labor situation, I think we have to focus on the northern metropolis first. Second, to enhance cost effectiveness, the government should contain the cost from the very beginning. There are views that public works projects in Hong Kong are known for being expensive. And the longer we drag on for these projects, the higher the cost will be. So BPA is of the view that we have to prioritize the large, medium, and small-scale public works projects. We have to review the priorities. We have to prevent drastic fluctuations in construction volume. We have to safeguard the employment opportunities of construction practitioners. Third, we have to leave buffer room at the planning stage. We have to allow flexibility for a certain project to be used for different purposes. In case of changes in the future, we can leave it to the market to decide how we can make the best use of the project and facilities. Lastly, I think there should be strengthened partnership and collaboration between the government and the business sector. Take youth hostels and transitional housing as an example. It is through the government's policy and the capital from the business sector. It is run by the community. If we do not adopt this model, it may take 8 to 10 years for the projects to be completed. With collaboration between the government and the business sector, we can speed up these projects and enhance efficiency. Thank you.
多謝主席。
Mr. Lam Chen Sing. I would first like to thank Mr. Chen Hak-kan for proposing the original motion. We have in this year's budget saying that as we have the commissioning of multiple projects, we will have a peak of the public works expenditure at $120 billion compared to the average of 5 financial years before. It is indeed a significant increase. With the government being in a tight fiscal position, we need to carefully review the different works projects, which is why we need to review priorities for public works projects to make sure we avoid cutting expenditure related to people's livelihood. That is reasonable. But the government has already been doing that in the past years. For example, in the 2024 LEUNG session, the government was supposed to submit many projects to the Public Works Subcommittee for consideration. They withdraw those projects, and these projects have yet to be submitted to the subcommittee for consideration. Those projects include the Aldrich Bay Stadium, the Chun Wan cycling track, as well as the various open space projects. There's also the solar energy plant project. From a society's perspective, compared to housing, transport, and development of roads, these projects are not the most pressing. Deferring such projects is not going to cost us much. And the LEUNG is going to be a gatekeeper, and the projects approved will be reflecting a priority of some sort. We shouldn't swing to another extreme where we are not allowing any projects to go through. For public works projects, we should undertake them if they are needed. We should prioritize those that are related to people's livelihood and or investing in the future, such as the major infrastructural projects in the northern metropolis. We shouldn't wait simply because the government is in a tight fiscal position. If we wait for the project to be taken later because of inflation, the cost may increase anyway. If there is actually a need for the projects to be undertaken, why not undertake it now. And we have seen the construction industry suffering a decline, and the practitioners have been affected. The employment rate of construction industry is now at 6.3%. It is the highest in the different industries. With less projects in the private sector, if we also decrease the number of public works projects taken forward, the construction industry will be significantly impacted and the practitioners will be affected. As Dr. Lo Wai-kwok said, we should make sure there are no drastic fluctuations in construction volume. We should also provide training and try to retain talents in the construction industry so that we won't have a manpower gap when the situation gets better, and instead we have to rely on imported labor. Thank you. I shall submit. Mr. Edward Leung. I speak in support of Mr. Chan Hak-kan's original motion. The DAB does not object to the undertaking of public works projects because it is investing in the future, especially for infrastructure projects. We do not object to the projects beneficial to society being undertaken. We actually think the government should invest in the future strategically. But then the government is in a tight fiscal position. In 6 financial years, for 5 years, we have a deficit. So when faced with these tremendous challenges, we need to be prudent. I very much agree with what Mr. Chan Hak-kan said. If we cut expenditure for people's livelihood, we have less concessions, we have less tax incentives, we have cut the 2,500 education allowance, we have also cut the benefits associated with the $2 transport concession scheme, and the government is going to be affected. While we do understand that we feel the concerns, we need to continue funding the projects so the public is felt somewhat wronged. So I'm clarifying that we do not need to scrap projects altogether, but focus on the specific projects. Say for some schools projects, we have some reservations. In principle, we support the schools that are outdated to be refurbished. But is it the case that we need to undertake all projects at once? And for some markets, there are some renovation projects, but then these are often disputed and controversial. Do we really need to undertake all these projects? When the government acts as a gatekeeper, we need to make sure the allocation of resources is appropriate. Say for the light public housing projects, I'm sure people agree with the direction taken, but people are concerned about the costs. So in the end, we have tried to compress the cost, saving costs 15%. And for the Shatin Trunk Road works, we have cut costs by $350 million. So we really need to think about for the works that need to be taken forward, whether we are allocating resources effectively. Investing in the future is important, but we need to make sure we are also paying attention to the present. I so submit. Mr. Chan Yong. I very much support what Mr. Chan Hak-kan said in his original motion. I also support the amendments proposed by the other members. We need to make sure the key projects are undertaken. So we should focus on what is said by Mr. Chan Hak-kan, being that key projects should still be taken forward. It is about optimizing the allocation of public resources to alleviate the financial pressure on the government, avoid cutting expenditure related to people's livelihoods. So it is about spending money when it is needed. I'm sure people agree with this general direction, because it is expected only in 2028 and 2029 that we will be able to not have a fiscal deficit. And when we see geopolitical tensions everywhere, we need to be prudent and make sure we are allocating our resources appropriately and prudently. And we have heard many say, sometimes when the relationship is going well, you get married, but then when there's something wrong, you find out that everything is wrong. So why not have this preparations done when the times are bad? Be prudent when you are using the resources. Mr. Chan Hak-kan is actually driving an electric vehicle, right? And if we can wait until, say, newer models are available, it may actually work out better for him. So I thank the government so far for having heated up feedback before resulting in cost savings in some projects. I graduated from the City University. There's a good invention of the City U that would have a cooling effect on surfaces. So maybe we can use that instead of relying on the district cooling system. We also have the Hoi Ping Road Joint User Complex project that has a library and other government facilities. We need to undertake this project, but then for some facilities, say a car park, it would traditionally cost 350,000 per parking space. If you use some advanced technologies, it would cost $3.5 million. So why do we need to undertake this project now? Why not invest in the more major infrastructure? And we actually have the newer vehicle models that can park themselves. Why would we need to use the advanced parking systems, the automated parking systems that cost significant amount? So why not wait? Oh, I can see that Mr. Dominic Lee is nodding. I think we should wait until the dust is settled before we take forward the projects that we're not so sure about. So we should put the funds in projects in that has the most pressing needs. For those that are non-urgent, we can defer them at least for a short time so that we can allocate resources to the most urgent projects. So this is what Mr. Chan Hak-kan said about reviewing priorities for public works projects to enhance the speed and effectiveness of key projects.
Mr. Jimmy Ng. Thank you, President. We are at a critical point according to this year's budget, as at the end of March, it is expected that the fiscal reserves would reach $650 billion. As for the annual capital works expenditure in the next 5 years, on average, the yearly spending would be $120 billion. So we're facing a very daunting challenge. We need to make sure that we proceed with accuracy and tread with caution. For key projects, we must not drag on our feet. For non-urgent projects, we need to make savings and perhaps slow things down a bit. The government should conduct a review for all these projects in light of the actual circumstances. All projects should go through this review process, and my suggestion is to set up a tiered system, breaking them down into tiers A, B, and C. For key projects such as the Northern Metropolis, of course, tier A is to be warranted. There should also be technology used to monitor the progress of works, and alerts should be issued should there be any delay. The second is to conduct a review in light of actual circumstances and the financial position of the government. We should optimize the allocation of public resources to make sure that every penny is well spent. The third suggestion is that we should focus on the 3 meridians in the Northern Metropolis: Santin Technopole, Hong Kong Logistics Park, as well as the Northern Metropolis University Town. We need to compress the vetting process. For example, there is to be a medical school in the university town of Northern Metropolis. Other supporting facilities nearby should be built together. We need to be flexible when it comes to Northern Metropolis development. We need to be able to negotiate bands smoothly and proceed when we're in a straight stretch. That means we should seek progress while maintaining stability. Now, I made 3 suggestions about this review mechanism. There is no overlapping involved. We need to plan ahead and vet applications way in advance so that we can be more focused and more precise in taking forward key projects. We need to invest in infrastructure to promote the economy and improve people's livelihood. This is also the key words used in the policy address of the Chief Executive in the past 3 years. Now, in order to enhance people's sense of bliss and sense of happiness, I think we should continue to put infrastructure first so as to build capacity. This is also the planning principles of the government. Infrastructure can help us build a sustainable city. It will also provide convenience to residents. We need to have good infrastructure to support industrial development and generate opportunities. Now, it's not just about hardware. Apart from basic infrastructure, we also need infrastructure for the community, including education and elderly facilities. Only when we have infrastructure for the community that brings warmth to the people will they have a sense of bliss. Will they enjoy living here? I support the motion and the amendments. Mr. Paul Chair. Mr. President, when it comes to monitoring how money is spent on public works, the Legislative Council has a number of mechanisms in place, including the council meetings, the Public Works Subcommittee, as well as the Public Accounts Committee. These are well-known and high-profile mechanisms for lawmakers to monitor the cost of public works. Within the Development Bureau, in fact, a unit was established in 2016. This office has a very low profile. When Mr. Paul Chan was the Secretary for Development, it was the Project Cost Management Office in 2016. It was later upgraded to Project Strategy and Governance Office in 2019 with different functions. Apart from managing cost, this PGSO considers whether money is well spent. So to tie in with today's motion, I think the PSGO's functions should be further enhanced so as to incorporate the views and suggestions of members. For example, developing criteria for assessing key projects and that priorities can be accorded appropriately to them. Since its establishment, the PGSO already vetted 540 projects entailing 1,200 billions of construction costs, and so far 16% of savings have been made, totaling $190 billion. So this office is very effective, and we feel encouraged. The terms of reference of the office should be expanded. For example, it should be made more independent. The office should take up a role of an auditor. A data-driven approach should be adopted so that data-backed indicators can be drawn up to assess the cost effectiveness and the priorities for public works. We should also harness technologies such as BIM or AI. Digital dashboards should be set up to monitor the progress of works. This is already very common in the mainland. The dashboard could help us check the timeline and incidents and the impacts on local communities. Continuous assessments can be conducted for us to better gauge the progress of works and the cost effectiveness. All these will drive efficiency and speed. Other members have made various suggestions as well. I'd like to turn to another point, and that's the Construction Industry Council, the CIC. The CIC compiles a model comprising 13 indicators for 40 stakeholders. The model aims to prioritize work, processes, etc. So again, we can enhance the function and draw up criteria so as to achieve the objective that we have been discussing today. In terms of cost control, we can make use of empirical indicators to give priority for public works on an objective and reasonable basis. I so submit. Sir Louis Leung. President. Today's motion is on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects. As a member representing the property sector, I seek to be enlightened by the invaluable views of members in this chamber. I don't think there is any bone of contention of this topic. So I meant to just listen to members' views, but having heard their views, I can't help but give my speech and say a few words here. I have no strong views on Mr. Gary ZHANG's motion. Indeed, in light of the public fiscal position, we do need to review the priorities for public works. However, I believe Mr. Gary ZHANG definitely has no intention of achieving the following. However, I want to make sure that there is no misunderstanding. Public works and livelihood projects are not in conflict with each other. Dr. Lo Wai-kwok's amendment, I believe, further enriches Mr. Gary ZHANG's motion. That is to say, he proposes consolidating the existing list of large, medium, and small-scale public works projects to avoid drastic fluctuations in construction volume, which is a common problem facing the industry. So it's very important. Again, Mr. Gary ZHANG's amendment shares the same objective. He proposes maintaining the overall scale of annual expenditure in public works. This is of utmost importance. I fully agree with the philosophy of fiscal prudence of the government, especially in a downturn economic cycle. Investing in public works would definitely bring impetus to the economy. So let's not forget, in fact, we shouldn't call it expenditure. We should call it investment in public works, because we get a return in the future. I don't have much to say about Mr. Adrian HO's amendment. Now, turning to Mr. Tony Chair, whilst I fully agree with his amendment, please correct me if I'm wrong. I did hear him say that if the previous amendments are passed, then he will be withdrawing his amendment. So I have something to say on this. His amendment provides maintaining the average annual capital works expenditure at about $120 billion. This is very significant, especially during economic downturn. The government must maintain this level of capital works expenditure. If Mr. Tony Chair withdraws his amendment, then this idea will be dropped. Finally, about Mr. Dennis Leung's amendment, I'm on board with his suggestion that we should first deal with urgent projects instead of deferring non-urgent projects. But the way the motion debates works in this council is that if Dr. Lo Wai-kwok's amendment has been passed, then his idea of dealing with urgent project first will not be dealt with in the before the original motion is voted on. I fully agree with both ideas. Does any other member wish to speak?
Mr. Gary ZHANG, you may now speak on the amendments. Thank you, President. I thank the members who have spoken. They have provided many valuable comments. I also thank Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, Mr. Gary ZHANG, Mr. Adrian HO, Mr. Tony Chair, and Mr. Dennis Leung for raising their amendments based on my original motion. Dr. Lo Wai-kwok is a representative of the engineering sector. I agree that government's public works can help bring about economic benefits. The government always stresses that we should not prevent drastic fluctuations in construction volume, and Dr. Lo said we should safeguard job opportunities of construction practitioners. I support this idea. Mr. Adrian HO brought about a point, that is, we have exorbitant costs in terms of public works projects, and Mr. Dennis Leung said we have to first deal with urgent projects. These do not run counter to the spirit of my motion. Therefore, I support all these three amendments. As for Mr. Gary ZHANG's amendment, I agree that we need to pursue economic development, making use of infrastructure works projects. However, he said that we have to maintain the overall scale of the government's annual expenditure in public works. If that's the case, we are setting a hard target on public works. That means the government won't be able to, in a flexible manner, make use of public funds. That differs what I proposed in my original motion, so the DAB will abstain voting from Mr. Gary ZHANG's amendment and we will claim division. And Mr. Tony Che said we have to ensure stability of the construction sector as well as development of our economy. Mr. Che mentions that we have to maintain the average annual capital works expenditure at $120 billion. I think that means we can only increase expenditure but not cut back on cost. Again, this differs from what I proposed in my motion. I suggest that we should prioritize the urgent projects and defer the non-urgent ones. So again, I will vote against Mr. Tony Che's amendment. I will call division. I thank members for responding to my motion. Thank you.
국장.
Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. President, I would like to thank once again Mr. Chen Hak-kan for moving the motion, Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, Mr. Gary ZHANG, Mr. Adrian HO, Mr. Tony Zhe, Mr. Janice LEUNG for proposing the amendments, and the 25 other members for their very valuable views. I should focus my response on a few areas of greater concern to members. Sustainability of public finances. The management of public finances should take into account the government's fiscal position over the economic cycle, rather than focusing on the government's revenue and expenditure in the short term. The government will carefully balance the impact of the process of tightly controlling the growth of operating expenditure and take forward projects in a prudent manner to minimize the impact on public services and the livelihood of the community as far as possible and provide sustainable financial foundations for future development. We will work with bureaus and departments to implement the reinforced fiscal consolidation program set out in this year's budget, with cutting expenditure and consolidating the government's financial resources as the main strategies, supplemented by developing new sources of revenue. And the projects related to people's livelihood will not impede it. We will increase the size of bond issuance. We believe in 2029 and 2030 under the government sustainable bond program, infrastructure bond program, we will issue a bond size of $150 to $195 billion. The term of the bonds will have regard to the market situation then, as well as the progress of the projects. I would also like to say this. The market capital raise will only be used in infrastructural projects. It will not be used to fund recurrent expenditure. This is a fiscal discipline we observe. As for other financing options, we will keep an open mind. We will have regard to the nature of different projects and consider the appropriate financing arrangement for the project. We will also consider the possibility of introducing private investment to take forward projects sooner. For example, the projects in the Northern Metropolis have been making use of innovative models such as in-situ land exchange and the large-scale land disposal arrangements. As for cost-effectiveness management, when we consider the priorities of projects, we will consider the long-term needs of society as well as the needs of different sectors of the community, so as to make sure we can strike a balance and ensure the sustainable and stable development of the economy and society. We will consider the justifications of the projects, the financial viability of the government, and the priorities of bureaus and departments We will make the decisions from a macro perspective. So we will not be controlling the specific projects. We will take a more macro perspective, but we will also practice improved cost management. We will make sure the public works expenditure is at a sustainable level. We will also have regard to the latest situation and cost effectiveness of projects in reviewing the priorities of the projects. Some members talked about how the EEB has reviewed the project for the district cooling system, making the scale smaller, saving costs of $40 billion, and the cycle track projects have also been deferred. We will continue with such reviews. We will continue to review the priorities for public works projects, and we will have regard to the fiscal position of the government and make decisions from a macro perspective. President, I thank members for their concern about the subject matter and their valuable views. The government's public works program is an important engine for promoting economic and social development. The Bureau will, on the premise of maintaining healthy public finances, continue to ensure that adequate resources are available to take forward various infrastructure projects that will benefit the people's livelihood and the economy. President, I so submit.
Secretary for Development. President, I thank Mr. Gary ZHANG once again for moving the motion, 5 members for the amendments, as well as some 30 members who have spoken. As I said in my opening remarks, and also as said by the Undersecretary for Financial Services and Treasury, infrastructure project creates jobs. On completion, they meet community needs and promote economic development. They're crucial to Hong Kong's long-term development. The Northern Metropolis is a top policy priority of the government. This is acknowledged by the Financial Secretary. Expediting the Northern Metropolis is the government's goal. And in just about a year, we have commenced 4 new development area projects. Phase 2 of Hung Shui Kiu, Ha Chun, the remaining phases of Putong North, Fanning North, Phase 1 of Santin Technopolis, and Phase 2 of Yunnan South, covering a total development area of about 700 hectares. The scale and speed are unprecedented. Now, despite the government's efforts in enhancing speed, there may be constraints in reality. Allow me to illustrate with this example. In recent years, we have beefed up our scale of land resumption. Comparing to previous years, we have resumed 7 times more land than before. In terms of compensation for land resumption, the cash flow accounts do not show exactly how much have been paid out. This is affected by other factors, but in fact we are enhancing the speed and efficiency of land resumption. Is it possible to do more and do it more quickly? We must bear in mind that for each land resumption exercise or government clearance of government land, residents and shopkeepers will be affected. We don't want to bring devastating impact on the local community. Now, when we often talk about enhancing speed, making it a key phrase, we do talk to the developers. We also want to speed things up, but according to them, it comes with a price. If we further compress the work processes, there will be cost pressure. So whilst we continue to make the best endeavors, we need to consider other factors as well. The government is responsible for maintaining fiscal sustainability and manage works expenditure and cash flow. Apart from deploying government resources, we also need to leverage on market forces to lower the cost of development and improve cash flow. Take Northern Metropolis as an example. In recent years, we've introduced many innovative policies and measures in land planning and development with a view to inviting the market's participation for the early completion of the projects. The other question is that whilst according priority for public works, should we only focus on Northern Metropolis and put everything else to the side? Take major infrastructure projects as an example. The government has already indicated that we will be deferring the artificial islands and the reclamation project. That means we are not going to devote new resources to conduct a new study. In fact, within this term of government, no works will commence for this project. We will not be drawing up a specific timetable. We also have near-shore reclamation near Leung and also Tuen Mun West's reclamation. These projects are of a similar scale. In fact, the Council has urged us to submit land use proposals as quickly as possible for their discussion because of the industries involved. So when it comes to priorities, we don't just accord priority to the Northern Metropolis. Apart from key projects, recently I've heard members discuss, for example, enhancing connectivity along the coast, building more piers, building escalators to facilitate local residents, replacement of old water mains, and road resurfacing projects, etc. These are livelihood-related projects. And we must not neglect works of a smaller scale as they are related to people's livelihood as well. So I think the major challenge facing us is that with a limited budget, we need to accord priorities for different public works, especially public works of different scale. This requires collective wisdom. That means the government should maintain close liaison with members as well as other stakeholders. After we tap the community's pulse, we must not be in a limbo. We should make decisions as quickly as possible. Now, some members mentioned further according priorities to public works projects when the proposals reach the Public Works Subcommittee. But frankly, I think it will be too late by the time we submit proposals to the Public Works Subcommittee and ask for funding, because by that time we have had prepared estimates and conducted studies, and there is also expectation from the local community. On the contrary, before the item reaches the funding application stage, I think it is important that we maintain close liaison. Many members just now talked about issues such as high construction costs, and this is something we need to tackle. In the past years, the government has been committed to tackling these issues. Now, let me illustrate with some figures. At one point, Hong Kong did rank the third in terms of construction cost index among other countries. This is beyond doubt. But by 2024, for the same index, our ranking dropped to the 9th place. In fact, according to the latest announcement, our ranking further dropped to the 10th. A drop in the ranking of this chart shows that we have achieved some results in controlling construction costs, but we must not be complacent. We will continue to promote transformation of the construction industry. That means we'll promote advanced construction methods, new materials, and innovative methods. For example, the MIC and MIMEP have been widely put to use, as well as construction, robotics, and other advanced technologies. These will help reduce reliance on on-site manpower and address the aging workforce. This will also help enhance construction efficiency and reduce construction costs. Furthermore, we will draw on the reference of advanced economies both locally and overseas and engaged with the industry to adopt innovative procurement models for public works projects and for building materials and components. For example, we're adopting framework agreements. And we're actively formulating policies for central procurement of MIC components and steel reinforcement bars. We'll also adapt standards from different regions to facilitate the application of high quality and cost effective materials, equipment, and methods from the mainland and from overseas in Hong Kong. To further strengthen cost control and project governance, the Development Bureau is working closely with the Financial Services and Treasury Bureau to study ways to optimize the preparatory and conceptual work before inception of projects. This is exactly what members have been suggesting recently, and that we need to adopt the mindset of being a landlord. Now, this collaboration with the Financial Services and the Treasury, Financial Services Bureau and the Treasury seeks to enhance site selection, use mix, scale, design, implementation, so that we can plan for a project and its budget at an early stage and further enhance cost management. We're formulating the relevant details and guidelines with a view to implementing them within this year. President, the government is facing various fiscal challenges. We'll continue to abide by fiscal discipline and make the best use of public funds. Public works projects will be prioritized and implemented, but that requires wisdom and the support of this council. We will also continue to promote public works so as to drive economic development, improve the living environment, create employment, attract talent, and enhance Hong Kong's long-term competitiveness.
I now call upon Dr. Lo Wai-kwok to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that Dr. Lo Wai-kwok's amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Members have been informed that as Dr. Lo Wai-kwok's amendment has been passed, Mr. Tony J will not move his amendment. Mr. Gary ZHANG, as the previous amendment is passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Gary ZHANG's further amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Mr. Gary ZHANG claims a division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
開始表。
We'll now proceed to vote. Will members please check their votes? If there are no queries, voting shall now stop and the result will be displayed. Members returned by the Election Committee: 36 present, 26 favor, 0 against, and 10 abstentions. Members returned by FC and GC: 49 present, 32 against, and 0 abstention. I declare the motion passed. Dr. Starry Lee. President, I move that in the event of further divisions being claimed in respect of the motion on reviewing the priorities for public works to ensure enhanced speed and efficiency of key projects, or any amendments thereto, this Council to proceed to each of such divisions immediately after the division bell has been rung for 1 minute. I now propose the question to you as stated. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. I order that in the event of further divisions being claimed in respect of the motion concerned, this Council will proceed to each of such divisions immediately after the division bell has been rung for 1 minute. Mr. Adrian HO. Since the previous amendment is passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Adrian HO's further amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Mr. Gary Zhang has claimed a division. The division bell will ring for 1 minute. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please check your votes. If there are no queries, voting shall now stop and the result will be displayed. Members returned by the Election Committee: 36 present, 17 in favor, 0 against, 19 abstentions. Members returned by FC and GC: 49 present, 25 in favor, 0 against, and 23 abstentions. The questions is not agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion negative. Mr. Dennis LEUNG, as a previous amendment is passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Dennis LEUNG's further amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Mr. Gary Zhang has claimed a division. The division bell will ring for 1 minute. Will members please proceed to vote? Will members please check their votes? If there are no queries, voting shall now stop and the result will be displayed. Members returned by the Election Committee, 36 present, 24 in favor, 0 against, 12 abstentions. Members returned by FC and GC, 49 present, 30 in favor, 0 against, 18 abstentions. The question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion passed. Mr. Gary Zhang, you still have 40 seconds. After that, the debate will come to a close. I will abstain from the vote later on. This is because Mr. Gary Zhang added a fixed target on my motion, that is a fixed annual expenditure in public works, so we will abstain from voting. I think we've reached a consensus, that is to review the priorities for public works. Another question, no consensus has been reached, but it deserves the Secretary to think about this. We have been tightening our purse strings, but every year the expenditure on public works will cost $120 billion. Can we be more frugal in spending? I now put the question to you that Mr. Gary Zhang's motion as amended by Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, Mr. Gary Zhang, and Mr. Adrian HO, and Mr. Dennis LEUNG be passed. Mr. Gary Zhang has claimed a division. The division bell will ring for 1 minute. Will members please proceed to vote? Will members please check their votes? If there are no queries, voting shall now stop and the result will be displayed. Members returned by the Election Committee, 36 present, 21 in favor, 0 against, 15 abstentions. Members returned by FC and GC, 49 present, 30 in favor, 0 against, 18 abstentions. The question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion is amended passed.
Members' motion with no legislative effect.